The police lights were flashing right in front of my house because my mailbox was the wrong color. Yeah, you heard that right. Matte black instead of the sacred Serenity sandstone. And leading the charge with her clipboard and that toothpaste commercial smile was Pamela Whitaker, the HOA president who treated community standards like her personal religion. She stood on my driveway in her pastel linen suit, sun visor perched like a crown, while Officer Ramirez leaned against his cruiser, trying not to laugh. "Mr. Hayes," Pamela announced to the gathering neighbors like she was reading a death sentence. "This violation is non-negotiable. Your aesthetic rebellion is lowering everyone's property values by at least 2%. For the children." I just sipped my coffee on the porch, 37 years old, software engineer, the guy who moved into this foreclosure special because it was quiet and cheap. I'd waved at these people for 3 weeks straight and gotten nothing but tight smiles. Now they were filming on their phones like it was Black Friday at the HOA circus. "Pamela," I said calmly, "check your own map. 1427, Serenity Lane sits 29 feet outside your jurisdiction. County records don't lie." Her laugh was pure theater, high, tinkling, the sound of someone who'd never been told no since 2012. "Oh, sweetie, everyone thinks they're special. We have an annexation clause. Doug, show him." Doug, her treasurer lapdog, flipped open a binder like it was the Bible. That was the moment the first chuckle escaped me, because I'd already spent my lunch break at the county recorder's office while they were busy measuring my grass to the quarter inch. The clerk had stamped the plat map so hard the ink bled. My little strip of land, never annexed, never voted on, never paid their ridiculous dues. But I didn't drop the bomb yet. I just smiled the way engineers smile when the math is about to ruin someone's day. The next morning, the yellow violation envelopes started appearing like cockroaches. $75 a day for the mailbox. Another $50 because my porch light was too warm-toned. Then the neighborhood Facebook group lit up. "The new guy on the edge is clearly anti-community," Pamela posted with a sad face emoji. "He refused to attend our welcome mixer, and now this. Thoughts and prayers for our property values." Comments flooded in. "He probably doesn't even recycle." I saw him smile at a dandelion once. By day for the whispers had turned into open stares. "Mrs. Alvarez crossed the street when I jogged by. Mr. Patel suddenly remembered he had to water his already perfect lawn whenever I pulled into my driveway. I didn't yell. I didn't post back. I just printed every email, every fine, every screenshot. Old habit from debugging code that tried to gaslight me. While they were busy turning me into the neighborhood villain, I was cross-referencing every line on the 2018 annexation proposal that had mysteriously never quite gotten filed. Pamela had been running Serenity Pines like her own little dictatorship for 6 years on paperwork that was still sitting in a county pending folder. The irony tasted better than the overpriced coffee at their mandatory block party I'd skipped. By week 2, the fines hit $400 and Pamela upped the ante. She sent Doug and 2 other bored Karens to document my yard at 7 a.m. On a Saturday. They snapped photos of my perfectly legal black mailbox like it was a war crime. One of them actually gasped when a leaf landed on my lawn. "This is why we can't have nice things," she muttered loud enough for my Ring camera to catch. I saved the footage. Every second. That Sunday, the official HOA newsletter slid under my door. Front page. Aesthetic terrorism threatens Serenity Pines. There was a blurred photo of my house with the caption, "Resident refuses to comply. Neighbors report feeling unsafe about resale prices." I laughed so hard I almost choked on my cereal. Unsafe? Because my mailbox didn't match their cult palette? The satire wrote itself. These people spent their weekends arguing about whether garden gnomes were too whimsical while pretending they were saving Western civilization. I waited, watched, documented. Because the best revenge isn't loud, it's inevitable. The escalation hit warp speed the day Pamela decided to involve the authorities for the greater good. Officer Ramirez showed up again, this time with a partner, because my continued defiance apparently warranted backup. Pamela stood on the sidewalk in full performance mode, voice trembling with fake concern. "He's undermining everything we built here. The children see that mailbox every day on the bus. Think of the message it sends." The partner actually rolled his eyes behind his sunglasses. I stepped outside holding nothing but the certified county map and the email from the recorder's office that read, in plain English, Parcel 1427 lies outside Serenity Pines HOA boundaries by 29 feet. Pamela's smile froze like cheap Botox. That's impossible. We've been enforcing standards on this entire street for years. Doug nodded so vigorously I thought his head might detach. I handed the papers to the officer. He scanned them, lips twitching. Ma'am, he's right. This property isn't under your charter. Never was. The silence that followed was beautiful. You could hear the collective gasp of 20 neighbors who'd spent weeks avoiding eye contact with me like I had the HOA plague. One woman actually whispered, "Oh my God, she called the cops on someone who isn't even in the HOA?" Pamela recovered with the grace of a cornered raccoon. "Well, we'll just annex it retroactively. The board voted last night." The officer handed the papers back to me. "Ma'am, you can't annex land by wishing. And calling us out here for a civil boundary dispute. That's a misuse of police resources." He looked straight at me and gave the smallest nod. "You're good, Mr. Hayes. Document everything." That night the group chat exploded. People who'd been terrified of Pamela for years suddenly found their spines. She told us he was dangerous. I felt guilty for waving at him. The dark humor of it all hit me while I sat on my porch watching the sunset paint my illegal mailbox gold. These grown adults had let one woman with a clipboard convince them that color coordination was more important than basic property law. But I wasn't done. While they were busy panicking, I'd spent the last 2 weeks quietly bidding on 3 county auction parcels: the retention pond lot, the pedestrian path, and, most deliciously, the land directly under the clubhouse where Pamela held her monthly standards enforcement meetings. The developer had gone bankrupt years ago. The HOA had been using the land like it was theirs without ever recording the transfer. I bought all 3 for less than a used sedan. Stamped. Recorded. Mine. I let the deed sit in my drawer like a loaded gun while Pamela doubled down. She sent a certified letter threatening to lien my soul if I didn't repaint the mailbox within 48 hours. The subject line actually read, "Final warning before legal Armageddon." I framed it. Saturday noon arrived like Judgment Day wearing flip-flops. The clubhouse parking lot was packed. Folding chairs in perfect rows. Pamela at the podium in her power pastel, microphone squealing every time she tapped it for emphasis. "Today we address the ongoing threat to our community standards," she began, voice dripping with moral superiority. Doug stood beside her clutching the binder like a shield. I walked in last, carrying one thin folder. The same neighbors who'd crossed the street now stared with something between guilt and anticipation. Pamela spotted me, and her smile sharpened. "Mr. Hayes, you are not a member, but since you insist on disrupting," I cut her off gently. "Actually, Pamela, I'm here as the new owner of several key parcels." I slid the 3 deeds across the table. The room went so quiet you could hear the sprinklers outside ticking in perfect HOA rhythm. Doug's face drained of color. Pamela's hand trembled as she picked up the top document. This is the retention pond. The path. To the land under this building." The county lawyer I'd brought as a witness stepped forward. "Correct. All recorded last week. Your HOA has been operating on private property without permission for 6 years. That makes every fine you issued on my client's house, and several others, legally questionable." A nervous laugh rippled through the crowd. Someone muttered, "She's been fining people over land she doesn't even own?" Pamela's voice cracked. "This is extortion." The lawyer smiled the way lawyers smile when they know they've already won. "No, ma'am. This is paperwork. Something your board apparently never bothered with." I leaned in. "For what it's worth, I'm not kicking anyone out. The neighborhood can keep using the park and the hall, rent-free. All I ask is that you stop pretending you own the law." The applause started slow, then built until the windows rattled. Betty from 2 doors down actually stood up and clapped. Pamela looked like she'd swallowed her own clipboard. By Monday, the HOA website was down. By Wednesday, half the board had resigned. Pamela's house went on the market that Friday with a bright red, "Available immediately" sign. The last time I saw her, she was loading boxes into a moving van while Doug awkwardly patted her shoulder. She caught my eye across the street and for once had nothing to say. 6 months later, the lawns are still green, but nobody measures them anymore. Kids draw chalk hopscotch on the sidewalks. One guy painted his mailbox neon green just because he could. The new community sign reads Serenity Pines, a free neighborhood. And every morning when I grab my mail, that matte black box still sits there like a quiet middle finger to every Karen who ever thought rules trump reality. So tell me, who was really in the wrong here? The guy with the wrong mailbox, or the queen who thought she owned the sun itself?